Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be going over general tactics, tips, and tricks to use in team games in Steel Division 2. Note that I say team games, as team games and 1v1s are very different. So much so that after doing 800 or so team games, my brother and I tried to get into the 1v1 scene and had to completely relearn how to play the game. This is for a few reasons, but I don't want to waste anyone's time by going over the differences in the game types. Suffice it to say that they are vastly different, and that while some of the strategies will work in both modes, they may not work in the same way or for the same reason. With that out of the way, let's jump right into it. There's something comforting about playing a game with a team member in Steel Division 2, even if you don't know the person or even if you don't speak the same language. It is reassuring that there is another person on your team that can support you if things go awry, or at least there is someone there so you're not alone when you lose horribly. All joking aside, something that can't be stressed enough in any game mode in this game is learning as much as you can about every deck. Not only will this clue you into the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent, but it will also tell you how you can best help your allies. A huge balancing act of team games is deciding whether to keep pushing on your current front or to help an ally. This pulls double duty. Here are some scenarios that should make you consider helping on another front instead of pushing further on yours. 1. There's something tempting to the lizard brain in every game that I've played that leads me to keep pushing even if there aren't any flags or strategic areas left to claim. The voice that tells me to get all the way to their spawn and shut it down, preventing the enemy from engaging you on this front anymore. While this can sometimes be a very good option, it is dangerous. Not only are there no more flags that you can get by doing this, but you're also forcing your direct opponent to spawn in on another front, potentially wrecking a team member's tenuous grip on a forward point, and causing more damage to your team than to the enemies. Because of this, look for zones that can be easily taken. Ping them and ask your ally what they need to help them take that. If you and your team are playing specialized divisions, take 3rd Fallschirmjäger and 5th Panzer for example, it might be that your ally is pushed as far as they can with what they have available and needs something from your division. In the example I listed, assume 5th Panzer has taken an open field, and on the other side of the field is a city or a forest. You can try to take it alone, but in a team game you don't have to. Ping for your buddy running the 3rd Fallschirmjäger to dump some spec ops and continue to dominate open areas. A real problem is that people don't realize when they're pushing hard in one spot is each step forward, your gun line gets further left behind, and so does your AA. On top of that, every step that you take over the middle of the map brings you closer to the enemy air spawn, and the likelihood that they will just bring in a bomber to stop your entire push. Overextension has been a huge problem for historical leaders in actual combat, and I'm no stranger to it myself in the game of Steel Division. Be careful never to bite off something that you can't chew, to put it into a metaphor. The last reason that you might consider helping an ally instead of pushing your own front is just mathematical. If there's one flag left to get on your side, and you're not sure you will be able to get it for whatever reason, yet there's a flag your ally is struggling to take much closer to home, giving them a hand is just going to be better and faster to get those ticks. This next one is simple and just common sense, but I still do it after 1,000 games, even though I know better. Don't bunch your units up. Even if you're marching a pile of infantry to the front lines, I guarantee that they are just going to get bombed or grenaded out of existence. This is with very few exceptions, but those exceptions don't mean anything, because a force spread out units are just as effective but infinitely more durable. If you catch yourself about to spawn in a big pile of things, at least remember to split them up before they get to where they're going. This can be easily done in one of two ways. If all the units that you're spawning in are the same, by selecting them and pressing Tab, you're able to cycle through each one of them one at a time, individually commanding each of them. It is easy to split up your infantry if all they have to do is hit Tab, unload at position, and repeat. The reason that this won't work if they aren't all the same is if you select a group containing different types of units and Tab, it will select a type of units and cycle from type to type. Still easy enough to command. Tell the entire bunch to unload at a position, then shift-click the one that you wanted to unload there out of your unit queue, and repeat this until there is only one type left, and back to tabbing. It sounds complicated, but once you get the hang of it, this will save you so much time. Next, don't escalate things if you're not ready to escalate. The phase system in Steel Division 2 is such to provide the illusion of an evolving battlefield. That said, you're bound to have some super units coming in earlier phases, and that's great. The only thing you need to watch out for is escalating without being ready to defend that escalation. A great example of this is an IS-2 deck, or 21st Panzer, with the King Tigers. More times than I care to count, I've seen people bring out these units, put it on the enemy radar seemingly as a challenge, and then lose it to Cluster Bomber because they didn't bring in AA to support it, or lose it to an AT gun because it hadn't been revealed yet and they didn't do their adequate recon. Early escalation is a great tactic, and it works really well if units are supported properly. But if you bring a Phase A King Tiger, then fail to protect it from the sky or from hidden units, you're just wasting the opportunity as well as 180 points. While I'm on the subject of bringing in a tank like the King Tiger or IS-2 early, make sure to use it. I have seen quite a few people on my team or against me that bring in one of these units in Phase A, place it somewhere, and seemingly forget about it until Phase C. If you're not going to use a unit in a phase that you're bringing it in, you may want to delay that unit. More often than not, actually, you should just be using it during the phase you brought it in. Next is a sort of esoteric concept, but only take engagements that are favorable to your units. If you're using a Panther deck, for example, and fighting IS-2s, don't engage with the Panther at 2 kilometers. The IS-2 is impenetrable at this range from the Panther, and will kill each of them in a single shot. On the reverse side, if you're playing an IS-2 division, and using an IS-2 to fight tanks at less than 1500 meters, you're risking your unit senselessly. It is best in these scenarios to create situations that favor your units rather than try to force the issue. That goes for any unit. The number of King Tigers that I've killed with my IS-2s because a King Tiger player had brought them within a kilometer of the IS-2s is silly. I know this harkens back to the first point I made, knowing your weaknesses and strength as opposed to your enemy will help you win, but I can't stress enough that a lot of this game is tank combat over fields and choke points. And if you're using your tanks wrong, oftentimes that's just going to be a loss for your team regardless of how good your infantry game is. Now time for a few quick small tips. Remember to turn off specific ammo types from any unit. I use this all the time. I turn off the HE on every Pak 43 I've ever used. I'll sometimes turn off the machine guns and HE in tanks to avoid them being seen if I'm planning an ambush. Use this often. It will save a lot of your units for the purpose they were meant to perform, rather than a 100-point gun firing uselessly at infantry and attracting the ire of enemy artillery and aircraft. Efficient shot is your best friend. A lot of players, when they are new, myself included, thought that the bigger the gun, the better it was at killing tanks. So we set out to only use things like Pak 40, Ziz 2 and 3, or the Pak 43, eschewing the M42 and Pak 38. We were so wrong in this. The Pak 38 and M42 are dangerous little machines, and all it takes to turn them into killing machines is to toggle on efficient shot. Visibility in heavy forest, indicated when your cursor turns green, is limited to 100 meters, while visibility in light forest, when your cursor is yellow, is 300 meters. This means that units like Automachiki, flame troops are going to be excellent in heavy forests, but trash in light forests. Plan accordingly. Finally, the biggest and best tip that I can give you on how to succeed in team games is this: communication. I know that it's sometimes very difficult to communicate given language barriers and whatnot, but even pinging spots that are troubling you or the location of troubling guns is still communication. My favorite games of Steel Division 2 are games that I begin by asking, what's the plan? And a person says, I'm going to take this zone. Can anyone spare me a Tiger for this spot? That's it. That's how you win. Sometimes all you need is one unit, and that will open the game right up, and asking an ally for it, or vice versa, will change the entire front. When my brother and I play, we do this constantly. I will trade heavy tanks for some infantry in an area, or the other way around. And it's easy enough to friend people after playing the game that you enjoyed playing with. I have a group of about 30 or so Steam friends that I play with now, depending on when they and I are on. And playing with people you enjoy playing with is always a blast, even if you're losing. With general tactics out of the way, my next couple videos are going to be breaking down specific tactics of armor, infantry divisions, and best practices therein. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you learned something.